Hey everybody, how's it going? I know I am so excited about this show because we have three things that I personally love so much, which is VMware, AWS, and GenAI. What do you think about this one? We're going to talk about VMware transform, or we're talking transformation. Just super excited about this. You want to talk about
Thanks. Yeah, Adam. Today's is a special episode. We're talking about modernization using generative AI and the modernization of what's most happening right now is, the VMware modernization, right? So everyone is talking about VMware modernization for a reason. We're going to dive into some details today, but we are excited because, we have maybe when we have all our specialists joining us today, then we can chat about why this is kind of special for everyone joining in the chat today, right? So, for everyone that's watching, I'm Anil Nadiminti. I'm a senior solutions architect here at AWS, joining alongside with Sean. And Sean, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Sean Lambert. I'm a senior specialist solutions architect in generative AI here at AWS. So nice to meet you all. Glad to be here.
Hey, Sean.
Thanks.
How
Yeah.
you doing? Good to see you.
So yeah, I'm joining from Princeton, New Jersey today. Adam, how about you?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Sorry, Sean.
How about you, Sean?
Richmond, Virginia.
Awesome. So Sean, do you want to talk a little bit about why is this so important? This topic of VMware transformations on AWS.
Yeah, happy to. We've got a lot of customers, lately that are really looking at the kind of the next step of what they want to do with the modernization of their applications. Many customers today, they've got a very large footprint on premises, and they're looking at what's next coming down the road as far as applications, whether it be making the customer experience better for their own company, driving new lines of business, and they simply want a way to be able to take some of the existing environment that they have and migrate it over to AWS. Now, in the past, we have tools that do this, and we have for quite some time. But what we're introducing as a part of AWS Transform is a generative AI experience that customers can now use to be able to have a natural language conversation with generative AI agents that will help the customers map their applications, design migration waves. And some of the things that I'm really excited about is actually create virtual private clouds inside of AWS, be able to bring those IP addresses and those subnets over. And then if you're a VMware customer on premises and you have NSX, AWS Transform will actually be able to take those NSX rules that you have on premises, and we can translate those into security groups. So the whole goal behind AWS Transform is to be able to make your migrations to AWS easier for your customers, for other businesses, if you're a partner. But that's really the whole goal, is having a generative AI experience that accelerates your migration and your modernization journey to AWS.
That sounds awesome. So what about you talk about NSX? So if they have like NSX, with T0s and T1s, maybe they have a complicated architecture. Is this something that VMware Transform or the transformation capability can help with?
And it can absolutely help. Yes, it can. There'll be some additional discovery that the customer will be able to do, some additional conversations that they'll have within the AWS Transform agent. But being able to translate those rules to AWS language is something that AWS Transform is going to be able to help with.
So awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. We have some viewers joining from all over the world. I mean, Subir is saying that he's 4 a.m. joining 4 a.m. from Dubai. Let us know where you're joining from, folks. And with that said, Adam, we have a couple of other guests as well, right? So do we want to bring them on stage?
Let's bring them on. Hey, Patrick, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure. Yep. Hey, everybody. Patrick Kramer. I'm a senior specialist SA here at AWS, migration and modernization with a VMware specialty.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Then, Karan, you want to go next?
Yeah, hey everyone. Kieran Reed, Senior Solutions Specialist Solutions Architect. Same as Sean, also focusing on GenAI and specifically AWS Transform. I'm in Nashville at the moment. Just moved here, which is why the room looks a little bare and the bed's not made. But yeah, looking forward to today's session.
I'm really excited about this, guys. This is such a great show for all of you watching, because Sean, Patrick, and Kieran here, have deep VMware expertise and experience. You guys want to talk a little bit about that, your background with VMware, and why this is such a game-changing capability that we're going to be shown today?
Yeah, I'll be happy to go. I've been with a VMware customer and worked for VMware, and I've been in the VMware ecosystem for well over 20 years. And so, I started out with, racking and stacking servers and cabling the networks up and installing ESX 3.5. And that's how far back I go. And then I look at the evolution of what VMware has become, and it's still an integral part of customers' data center, and I believe it will be for quite some time. But being able to help customers that have challenges around, moving from VMware administration, for example, to AWS, it's a jump. I myself had to make that jump, and being able to translate, clusters and resource pools and things that are common in VMware speak, but then having to translate that into an AWS network with all these other services that are available, it's a challenge to be able to make that jump. So those that have made that jump, AWS Transform for me is just the next step in helping customers modernize their applications, being able to use those AWS services. But being on both sides, it's really helped me to understand the whole picture. But it's something that I'm really excited about, because many customers have a cloud initiative today, and we are going to be able to help fulfill and help them achieve some of the initiatives that they have with this generative AI tool. Thanks, Sean. That's awesome. Yeah. What about you, Patrick?
Yeah, I've lost my visual cues, so I can only respond to audio cues right now. Yeah, my journey is a lot like Sean's. Already followed similar tracks, right? Rack and stack, and then working directly for VMware. And my personal journey is a lot like what customers are going through now. You learn the classic way of doing it, and then how can you modernize your own skill set so that you can modernize your infrastructure and modernize your approach.
And over to you, Adam. Again, how does this connect to you, right? I know you have this VMware background as well. So speak about that.
Yeah, thanks. No, yeah, I also spent time at VMware. I was professional services at VMware for a long time, and definitely back in the days of vRealize automation and the old school NSXV, and even before that, lots of different things there. And so this is really exciting to me, especially as an AI guy now, and at AWS. Like, this is just magic what this capability does for VMware customers, and I'm just like super stoked, to go from like vRealize orchestrator or some of those old scripting paradigms to being able to now we can actually automate this infrastructure transformation in a big way. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, and for all the viewers that are watching, we've seen other episodes, as part of we streamed other episodes as part of the show and tell, where we've shown how to build an agent, how to use an agent, or invoke large language models, right? So, but in today's episode, we're going to see how you can use the agents to transform and modernize your legacy infrastructure, right? So this is an application of generative AI that will directly help in modernizing your legacy infrastructure and accelerating this. I mean, back in the day, I know that looking at this project itself, if it's a modernization project, I mean, we have people trying to figure out, hey, what is this going to look like? What's the timeline going to look like, right? So, and it looks like generative AI is accelerating the pace of innovation. So let's talk about, what we're doing today and what we're going to share today, right? So,
well, really quick, and now I just want to get to Kieran here. To give him his background really quick on his VMware experience, and then we can definitely dive into it.
Oh, you're fine. No, thanks, Pat. Similar backgrounds to Sean and Patrick and pretty much everyone else here, except I never worked for VMware. I was always in the customer space for years. So I worked in the financial institutes, Bank of London, for financial institutes there. And the challenge we had as customers was always, people are working in silos. They're focused on, they've got, all their business challenges and stuff in front of them. They don't necessarily have that time to learn those AWS constructs that Sean was talking about. And we're really hoping that this product will help, not make that learning curve go away, but make it a little bit easier for customers to be able to move over there and be able to continue with that without having to maybe go through some of the more painful steps that we all had to go through when we joined AWS. So yeah, we're excited to go through this today, and hope you enjoy the talk.
Yeah, well said. So let's go ahead and kick this off. Sean, you want to, or Kieran?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 seconds. Let me know if the screens go forward and back. Otherwise, we get stuck there. All good. All right. So we are going to discuss migrations with our customers and partners. We talk to them all the time, and we hear some key challenges from all of them when we're talking about moving from on-prem over through to AWS. When we ask them, tell us what your challenges are. And the first one is, legacy workloads, slowing down innovation with outdated VMware environments. Outdated, what does that mean? Hard to keep vCenter and the ESXi hosts, up to the latest, versions. Going back to my customer days, we had to have a project that was to be funded to do that. And by the time that project came to term, the environment was out of date again by the time we started with regression development and then the production environment. So that was always a bit of a challenge for them, and all of that sort of hindered their ability to adopt new technologies or innovate quickly, add business value really. They almost always bring up the recent licensing changes and the rising costs, which are driving reevaluations. So a lot of the businesses are compelled to reassess their current setups. And this financial pressure is significant, pushing organizations towards things like modernization into cloud providers such as AWS. And then, as we're touching on earlier, Sean and I, as I just mentioned, customers aren't sure how to bridge that sort of skill gap. So as they move towards more cloud native and modern architectures, a lot of the IT teams find themselves lacking in those necessary skills and knowledge to make that transition a lot more smoothly. So these are the key challenges we're seeing when we talk to partners and customers. And here are some of the insights we're seeing in the market regarding VMware modernization. So recent analysts' data, and that's strongly supported by the direct feedback we're getting, is that 74% of organizations are actively exploring alternatives to their on-prem VMware strategy. Pretty high, and this exploration isn't happening in isolation. What we're hearing is there's actually quite a clear demand for future-ready strategies and flexible options, whether it means either containerizing those workloads or pursuing those rehosting sort of solutions. That's particularly interesting because by next year, the analysts project that sort of 95% of new workloads will be built on cloud-native platforms. So that's new workloads will all be built on cloud-native platforms. And that represents quite a significant trigger point for organizations to, again, reevaluate the on-premise VMware strategies. And then one of the most important lessons we've learned is that there's no universal solution for VMware modernization. Everyone on the call will tell you that each organization has unique needs, and providing customers with multiple migration options, such as the one we're going to talk today, is something quite important to all of them. So there's no more comments. If there aren't any comments, I'll walk you through the key areas, the 3 key areas that makes VMware modernization particularly complex for our customers. We touched on a few of them, but just go into a bit more detail. This will be a very show and tell sort of solution, but I just wanted to sort of set the stage for folks that might not be aware of this particular offering. So if we look at the financial aspect, and this goes beyond just the licensing costs, which I discussed earlier. So when organizations look at modernization, they need to consider not only the direct costs of infrastructure and licensing, but they also want to factor in how that current systems might be costing them in terms of the delayed innovation and operational inefficiencies. So those are the things that some of the business leaders are coming back with us when they're assessing this. And it's all about really finding the right balance between that initial investment in modernization and migration and the long-term financial benefits that it's going to bring. Moving over to the technical challenges, and this is where things get particularly involved. Modernizing VMware environments isn't just about moving those systems from one place to another. We're talking about migrating complex interdependent systems while ensuring they remain compatible with the existing applications. We all have those applications on-prem that are still, hard-coded IP addresses that talk to each other, even though we beg them to use DNS names. We know that they're still there. It's hard to move away from some of those. People, don't want to touch them. And organizations really need to think about how they'll refactor those applications, manage the data migration, and then most importantly, how do they do this while keeping their business running smoothly? And if we go back to that side, we talk about the people and skills aspect of it all, and that's usually the most challenging piece of the puzzle. organizations aren't just dealing with technology challenges, but they're also facing the challenges of bridging significant knowledge gap between the traditional VMware environments and the modern cloud architectures. So this involves helping existing teams adopt to new technologies, bringing in new talent, and needing and managing a cultural shift that comes with adopting new ways of working. So understanding these three challenges of complexity is essential because it shapes our entire approach to the VMware modernization.
Really quick, something that I saw recently in a executive survey that was done recently by the Cube is that most executives view upskilling and the skill gap to be their biggest challenge to modernization, GenAI or not. And I think that this is one reason why this particular capability for transforming VMware workloads using generative AI is such an amazing capability that kind of addresses that concern.
Yeah, no, that's right. And you basically said exactly what I was going to on this slide.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. It's exactly where AWS Transform, which we're talking about today, is designed to address all those key challenges comprehensively. Not just the technical aspects of the migration, but the skills gap, as you mentioned earlier. And this is really a generative AI-powered assistant specifically designed to modernize VMware workloads onto the cloud and transforming how we approach migrations onto Amazon EC2. So what makes this really revolutionary is its ability to use purpose-built AI agents to automate the entire migration journey. And that goes from the initial discovery all the way through to the wave planning that Sean was mentioning earlier that he was super excited about, as well as all the way down to the execution phase. The product not only helps organizations lower their costs and licensing fees, and that is done by using EC2 effectively and efficiently, but also enhances their overall security posture, scalability, and resilience. And then, of course, once those workloads are migrated, customers can gain access to those over 200 plus native services that we've got, and that just opens up tremendous opportunities for innovation, one of the key things that they called out in the beginning. And again, this solution directly addresses the other challenges we discussed earlier, providing that streamlined path to modernization, helps organizations overcome these technical hurdles and operational hurdles as well. And what we like customers to remember, it's not just about moving workloads to the cloud, but it's about transforming how organizations operate within that cloud once they've done that. A couple more, and then we're going to hand over to Patrick. But this represents a significant leap forward in our modernization technology, and it combines several powerful features into one comprehensive solution. So at the core, we have a unified web experience. Now, think of that as like your central command center that guides you through the entire migration journey. So from that workload discovery phase to completion with an intuitive dashboard for progress tracking. And what makes this truly unique is our domain experts AI agents, and we'll go into more details into those later on, but they're built on 18 years worth of cloud migration experience. So you have a lot of depth and breadth behind them. And we've struck an important balance between automation and control using our human in the loop approach. Now, what does that mean? So while this new system can automate those complex tasks, network translation, for example, it makes sure that you have that human overall insight at those critical points of your migration, so that you always have people approving those key.
Yeah, we can't exactly right. We can't let obviously the system can do certain things, but we want to make sure that we get feedback going into the system as we try to modernize, and that's an important part of the step.
Yeah, no, and that's really a really best practice when you're talking about generative AI is always having that human in the loop. And I really like you touching on the domain expert aspect. Could you, maybe you're going to demo this a little bit, but can you touch on that a little more? I really like what you said, that all these years of experience that we at AWS have with cloud migrations, we're putting that into our AI agents as super experts. Can you speak a little more on that and why that's such a big deal?
Yeah, so we have tons of migration tools available at AWS, but The problem with those tools is they all operate, in silos independently. You're in one and you're doing something for one application, then you're in another and doing something for another, and there's no shared context between them. And and migration projects, especially for larger customers that we've all worked for and with, they take a long time to move, even if it's smaller workloads sometimes. And that could be funding, scaling up, migration, whatever. It takes a while. So what this product now does is it gives you that shared context between the migration tools. I mentioned this, think of it as your command center. It's going to orchestrate those migration tools, giving you that shared context between all of them, and allows that human in the loop feedback. So you can invite people in from your service desk, application owners, project managers, all to sit and work with you on this migration journey. It's not just the techie guys doing it or a team of technical experts doing it. It is everyone feeding into this and making those decisions, and then it going through the whole approach end to end. So that's what we're doing. We're leveraging the 18 years of experience that we've got, and we're building these generative AI tools to help orchestrate those tools, giving you that shared context and that human in the loop approach.
Awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah. And it's all powered by using advanced large language models. We're all familiar with those now. And that enables both natural interaction as well as sophisticated automated capabilities. And that just makes your modernization journey a little bit more, a lot more manageable than ever before.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Yeah, I think, Neil, you and I have talked about this a lot. Like generative AI really brings about finally true automation. We've had a lot of automation capabilities with many different vendors and tools in the past, but I think we're really seeing what true, powerful, artificial intelligent automation can bring us.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what we're going to be presenting today, right? Because one thing is to build apps, but the other thing is to actually bring over apps, and this is the part that takes a lot of time, a lot of coordination, and whenever Patrick is going to show his demo, I think we'll see that's in action.
Yeah, right you are. One more slide and we'll hand over to him. So as we wrap up the slide portion, we're going to just summarize some of the key capabilities for those who joined maybe a bit late. But the process can be broken down into 4 crucial steps. We have AWS Transform provides that deep understanding of your VMware environments, and it uses AI-driven analysis to do that. We thoroughly examine your workloads as well as their dependencies. And that comprehensive discovery phase sets that all-important foundation for a successful migration by ensuring we have the complete picture of your environment. Once we understand that environment, we can then go on to the intelligent migration wave planning. Now, that is it's not just about scheduling, beg your pardon. It also includes the complex tasks of converting those network configurations to AWS. And Sean mentioned that when we opened the call about if you're running NSX on-prem, we'll translate those to AWS security groups. We'll build and deploy those VPCs for you. And that ensures your network architecture is optimized for the cloud from day one. And then for the actual migration, AWS Transform integrates with our AWS migration tools from those 18 years experience I touched on before. And that integration allows for faster, safer executions of large-scale migrations, reduces downtime, and the entire process is provided to customers through that unified web experience, which I mentioned. So it's unified. You don't have to keep jumping in through different context windows, and it's collaborative, as I mentioned earlier. And it allows your teams to work together efficiently, quickly resolve any issues that could arise, and ensure that seamless transformation.
Well, thanks, Karen. I'm excited. I feel like we have an awesome stage set here.
Yeah.
Noah, what do you think?
Yeah. Let's see what Patrick is going to show and tell to everyone here. So we can see your screen, Patrick, although we can't see your camera. Looks like Patrick is having technical issues with cameras, but we can see the screen.
Yes, hopefully you see my screen and you can hear me, so that ought to be good enough.
All right.
All right, so here we are in Transform workspace. You can see I have a bunch of different migration jobs going. So if I want to come in here and create a job, I'll just hit the create a job.
Really quick, Patrick, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, how would a customer access this in the AWS console?
So there's an AWS Transform area of the console where with a little bit of configuration, it'll actually give you a URL. So this is a web application URL out of the console, and you would hit the URL and log right in.
Oh, very cool. Thank you.
So it's going to ask you, you want to do VMware, .NET, mainframe, or migration assessment. So we're doing VMware migration. And I'm answering questions here, but if I already know what I want, I could literally type in the words, create a end-to-end VMware migration job, and it would just go do it. But I'm showing you all of the options just so you know what's out there. So the new, at the general availability earlier this month, we always had end-to-end migration during the preview, but we've added some different options. So we had customers come to us and say, I don't really want to do an end-to-end migration. All I want is to be able to use your product to generate VPCs for me. I only want help translating my on-prem networks into AWS constructs. I'm going to do all the rest myself. Can you just give me that capability? So we delivered on that. Certain customers want just that. We have some customers that want both the network piece and actually the migration piece. So we give the option to do that. We have some customers that don't want the network piece touched at all. We have customers that already have a substantial AWS presence, and they want to be able to discover what they have on-prem. They want to be able to do wave planning, but they want to do all the networking themselves. They've been doing it for years. They already know what they're doing. They know exactly where workloads are going to land. So they didn't want every single piece of an end-to-end migration. So we have these options for you now. But was a question?
Anil, do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, maybe typically, before we do the migration, we want to be able to understand what is in the landscape of our on-prem world, right? So we want to be able to discover and probably create wave plans, but we want to know how these infrastructure in on-prem is connected, right? So how does this tool help? And maybe, Patrick, you're going to show us. Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but we want to be able to understand how this is going to guide our navigation process.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a whole workflow. It'll guide you right through. So I will definitely show you.
That's awesome. And I guess before we get started here, do customers need to worry about using traditional tools, discovery tools like RV tools and things like that, or can they just get going with this?
RV tools is probably the fastest way to go ahead and do inventory discovery. We do also support some other methods that we'll talk about in here, but
Okay.
RV tools is the fastest for sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
So here we're talking about end-to-end migration. So I'm just going to say end-to-end. This is everything A to Z. And then it will say, hey, I'm going to name the job this. I could tell it to rename the job, but I won't. I'm also not actually going to create the job because I've already created one. I've actually created many. So I'm going to jump into this really quick. And I just want to point out that if you were doing this for real, you would just be following the steps top to bottom. This is an entire end-to-end workflow showing you, guiding you through the entire process. Now, in order to demonstrate this in 30 minutes, I have created a bunch of different jobs doing the exact same thing. It's just in different phases of the progression. So cool. When I'm jumping around, don't think that you're going to be doing that in production. It's just this is how to demo. So the first thing you're going to end up in is the kickoff. So we have multiple personas, 4 different personas. An administrator is an administrator, which you would imagine, full control over everything. We have this idea of approver. You will see different areas where you'll see HITL, human in the loop tasks. And our customers told us that they don't want generative AI to take action on their infrastructure without approval. So you can have just a specific role, and that might be somebody in change control, that might be a project manager. It depends on your business rules. But you can have somebody who only approves changes. That's an option. You have a contributor. So a contributor is really somebody that can do almost anything in here, but they can't do approvals and they can't invite people in. So they can't add other people to the workspace. And then view only. I'll show a dashboard a little bit later. View only is awesome for managers, for project managers, for people who want to see the status of a migration and you don't want to keep manually giving them status, Slack check-in every day. Hey, how many VMs moved? they can just go right up to the dashboard and see it themselves. And we'll show that in a minute. There's nothing to show quite yet because we're not moving anything yet. So let me move on to a discovery account. So when you're doing this in like a full production setup, the idea is that AWS Transform is running in one account, and you will have a discovery account. So that's a second account that all of your discovery data gets uploaded into. So if you push RV tools into here, it'll be stored in this discovery account. If you upload some NSX stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it'll be stored in this discovery account. Application discovery service, which again we will talk about, it'll be stored in this account. So I've created an account, and I've already done the account setup. It's really just a role. So you'll add an account number, go into this target account as an administrator and approve it, and then we'll hit use connector. And then that'll take us to phase 2. So again, I'm jumping out into another job. Remember, you would just stay in the same job. But these jobs, again, they're designed to run for a long time, right? These migrations could take days, could take weeks. You know, if you have a huge migration with many, many phases, it might be months or longer. These jobs are designed just to run until the job is done. Now we perform, yep.
So I have a question. So let's say a customer has a mixture of like VMware Cloud Foundation, VCF environments. Maybe they have it. They also have like some non-VCF infrastructure as well. Does that matter? In any way for the transformation here?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, VCF, a vCenter is a vCenter. So
right.
It's essentially discovered in the same way. Yeah.
Cool. I think we have a question as well, really quick here. So Go Guppy says RV Tools is mentioned during the import existing data sets. He's used RV Tools for years, but with recent mishap with fake website being spun up or misled users, how is AWS navigating their customers?
That depends, right? There are a number of customers that already had it and they have a known good copy and it's already been AppSec approved. Tons of customers already have it. We are looking at options. I don't really have anything to say publicly right now, but we're looking.
Yeah, and we also have another question in the chat asking what are the alternatives for RV Tools, and I see that Sean has also responded.
Yeah, so we've as of today, right, on this release, we've got RV Tools to Patrick's point. We also accept Modernize IT. So those customers that are using Modernize IT for inventory collection and other things that service can perform, that's an accepted import, as well as the application discovery service and migration evaluator. We can take those as well. So if you're already in AWS today, you're deploying workloads, we can take those two collectors and we can then understand that data and then work on migrations that way as well. But Modernize IT is another accepted import along with RV Tools, if outside of the AWS services there.
Awesome.
Right, and you can use ADS. So we have application discovery service collectors. That is an option to go ahead and deploy that as well. If you want automatic wave planning, you have to use this. If you want to skip RV Tools, you have to use this. But you can also just upload RV Tools and do the wave planning on your own without the application, without the ADS.
So quick question, Patrick. So are you saying that we have two options there, the collector, the application discovery service agentless collector and the discovery agent? So which one are we going to be using if we need the wave planning also?
So it depends on what you want to do. They both work. The agentless one requires you to put credentials into a credential store. So depending on customer security policies, they may or may not allow that. But it does not require an installation. The discovery agent is, of course, agent-based. And that's something that you can download. Your AppSec can scan it with whatever scanners you use to scan. But then you also would have to deploy the discovery agent on every machine that you need to migrate.
And we keep getting a question, when we speak with customers, right? So there's agentless and agent-based. So can we also understand the difference between those? I mean, you mentioned one is being able to put the credentials, but from a network scan perspective, being able to understand the connectivity, is there any trade-off using either of those
Nope.
tools?
Exact same data.
Hmm.
Exact same data.
And just to be clear, these agents that we're talking about here, of course, are separate from GenAI agents. These are actual just software agents that you install, correct?
That is true. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, what this agent list collector is, it's an OVA file for those of you that are familiar with VMware, and you download a virtual appliance in your environment, authenticate to vCenter, and then to Patrick's point with the credentials that you put in, we're simply collecting the VM information inside of vCenter using this discovery collector that is deployed inside of your VMware environment.
Excellent.
Okay, so in this case, the demo does not have ADS, so it was an RV Tools upload. Well, you can see many different uploads here, but all I did is hit import and uploaded my RV Tools, and that took us to phase 3. And it'll upload your file, and it'll say, hey, here's what I found. Does it make sense that there were 485 servers? Does it make sense that there were 4 applications? Did it make sense that I did 6 different imports of the same data? No, it didn't, except I was setting up the demo, and I have 6 different jobs doing the exact same thing, so that's why this is showing up. But you can look, you can download what Transform has stored and take a look at the data that has been translated from RV Tools or ADS or however else you've imported it. And you get to decide, I don't like this. Let's go back. I'm going to try to fix my upload. Or let's go. I'm good. Hit the Generate Waves button. And you can move on to step 4, which is wave generation. And what'll happen is it'll load this up into a spreadsheet. It'll give you a spreadsheet. It'll list out all of the virtual machines. If you used ADS, that spreadsheet, that CSV file really is going to have, based on the network traffic between those VMs, it's going to have an application wave, and it's going to have an application name, essentially. So based on what machines are talking to each other, those are the ones that need to move in a particular wave.
So what we're saying is that there may be dependencies between the applications, right? Network connectivity is there, or they may be connected in different methodologies. So are we saying that the wave planning is going to take all of those into consideration when it generates those plans?
Yeah. So again, if you're using ADS, you have to use Application Discovery Service to get the or Modernize. It also works for Modernize in order to get the communication data between the virtual machines to get automated planning. You have to use one of those 2 tools. It does not work for RV Tools only. If you use RV Tools only, you're going to have to fill that all in yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, right? RV Tools is just a snapshot in time. There's no such thing as network communication in an RV Tools file, right? It's just an inventory. So there's no way for us to know.
There's no way to discover the whatever the connectivity is between those applications.
Exactly.
Right. So now that we have the waves, you say something.
You'll download it. You can upload it. Whatever's in this file, those are the only things that are going to have action taken. So like when I did this for the demo, I was just doing like 4 VMs. So I deleted everything except for the 4 that I cared about. So whatever you push back, whatever you upload back into here, those are the only workloads that are going to be available for migration going forward.
Okay.
Now we're on phase 5. Okay. So like I said before, you have multiple accounts. You've got a source account and you've got a target account. So we did a little connector. You can see the role that gets created to give Transform the ability to provision into your target account. So you'll create that connector, and now it's time to generate a VPC configuration.
So from source to destination, like on-prem to your cloud account, some customers I know of that are heavy VMware users, they still have static networking. Would they need to upgrade to dynamic routing to be able to connect to AWS and use this?
No, you don't have to change any of that.
Okay.
Nope.
So they don't need BGP or OSPF or any of that stuff?
No.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we also have a question coming in the chat, Adam.
So Mohan is asking, how much time does it take for a human to understand the migration plan generated by AWS agents? So I think what maybe he's saying there is there a big learning curve?
Not really. I'll show you the waves. You tell me in a little bit how long it took, and if it seemed easy or not. I'll show you in just a couple more clicks.
And then the one ad, Patrick, as you're going through that, the one ad that I did do in the chat is, basically Patrick's going to show us, we're going to get an output, right? So I'm going to be able to look at, this is the me human in the loop. I get the chance to look at look at all the VMs and then determine how do I want to group them together based on applications and ways for the move. And so this is deep, as far as how much time it takes for human interaction. It depends how many VMs we're going to move, right? And then it depends on us going back to application teams and discussing when are we going to move application B, and what are those dependencies that we need to understand there. And so the time it takes to actually move and understand it depends on how well you understand, your environment and your application teams that you're going to talk to as a part of setting up these ways. We will make recommendations based on the data that we see, but it's pertinent that you go back to your teams and make sure that you want to perform what we're recommending here.
So does that mean that when we get this wave plan created, Sean, are we able to switch around the priorities? Like maybe there's something coming in wave 1, but can we move it into wave 2 and let the system automate the rest of the stuff?
Yes. So Patrick's got the data here, so I'll let him speak to it.
So you get something that looks like this. These are just the 4 VMs that I chose. You saw there were like 400 or 500 in my initial file, but I pared it down to just these 4 that I was interested in. You can see it's complaining here that I did not install ADS. So it said, hey, I have no data. I don't know. And these were blank. So the name of the application and the name of the wave were blank when I got this file. And I filled it in myself. And obviously, this is just a lab, so I just made it up. But in reality, in production, you would have to know, right? If you're not using a tool, you're going to have to know which machines belong to an application and which machines you're going to put in which wave. And then whatever's in here, that is what AWS Transform is going to do. So this is sort of your final wave plan. Whatever you push back into AWS Transform, that's what it's going to do.
So let's say that we get like 500 rows here, but we are interested to migrate only 50 VMs. Can we just include those 50 VMs and continue come back and then include the remaining if we feel that we're heading and making progress?
You'd have to do it in a new job, but
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Excellent.
And all of the connectors stay. Like I showed the source and the destination. That all stays. So you can do a new job and you can use another connector.
Yeah, and this is where the discussion of wave planning comes up. Is there's this discussion that we go back to of RB tools versus an agentless collector versus using the AWS agents. To Patrick's point earlier, and you, Adam, as well, if we put agents on every single machine on premises, that now means that we're collecting the communications between all of these VMs. What does that mean? We can also better understand the dependencies and the communications between the VMs with these agents. Therefore, this tool will give you a better and a more definitive migration plan. Whereas if you're using RB tools or an agentless collector, there's some more work to be done because, to Patrick's point, there's no network information. That's one reason why if you want to create more tangible data behind the networking components, that's where you would want to look at installing agents on each VM to better understand those communication paths.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's a great explanation. So on the network side, I have a question too. So if a customer has NSX-T or they don't have NSX at all, or even if they have NSX-V, which they shouldn't be on, but let's say they were, are there any caveats there in terms of VMware-based networking that they have to be on to make this work?
So we don't have any support for V. We do have support for T.
That
so
makes sense. That makes sense.
We have a tool called import export for NSX, and you can export. You can basically dump your T configuration into some JSON files, and you can import that in this very step. And then it's actually able to see things like it can create security groups. It'll see all of your virtual networks. So yeah, I mean, if you're on T, you have to you have to use the NSX tool. Yeah. Otherwise, obviously, it's a virtual network, and we have no visibility into it. Awesome. But you would do that here, so you can see all of the VPCs that I already created are sitting here in the account as part of setting up. So you can migrate
there. Yeah. So you're saying that the VPCs are sitting there. So can you? What is that again? Oh, it's saying that it discovered the VPCs.
Right, because again, I already went through this setup, right? I already did a migration, so the VPCs have already been generated, and this finds them. But this is also how it works if you are not using an end-to-end migration, right? I talked about different ways to use it. Maybe you've already got your VPCs set up. And you're going through the migration, and you get to this phase, and it says, "Hey, I've already got the VPCs set up," and you say, "Cool, that's what I wanted anyway," right? As designed. So you have a choice. You can migrate to ones that are there, if there are any there, or you can ask it to translate VPCs. And this happened to be an NSX source. So I did upload a dump from import export for NSX so that it could see all of those networks and create security groups for me. Otherwise, you can just you can use the ADS data, or you can pick the RV tools file here in this step. And let's see, does it show? Actually, I don't know that it shows exactly what I want to show, so I'll have to talk through it. Let's see. Okay, so this is hidden. So I do want to talk through this though, because it's important. So what'll happen on this phase is you'll be prompted, and it'll say, "Hey, I've generated VPC configurations." If you use import export for an NSX, it will also have created security groups. Essentially firewall rules, security groups in AWS terminology. And it'll say, how do you want to use these? Do you want me, AWS Transform, to provision them in your target account? And you can say yes, and it'll just go out and do it. There is a CloudFormation template, a set of them really, that are generated, and that's how it does it. You can also just say manually. Maybe you already use CloudFormation for something else. Maybe you already have an infrastructure as code pipeline, and you want to use those CloudFormation templates. And you can just download them right from here. You can look at them, you can change them. We also support CDK. So we have customers that do it all programmatically using CDK. You can't automatically deploy using CDK, but you can download the CDK and integrate it into your existing CDK pipeline. So you have a bunch of different choices for how you're going to get the native objects to appear.
And we have another next question in the chat, Patrick. So this is like, if you do not answer immediately and let the elapsed time run, are you charged for anything idling there, right? So this is a common question that we come across where, are you charged for anything that's waiting in the waiting state?
Yep. Nope. You are not charged. That's one of the beautiful things about AWS Transform. You are not charged for anything.
Wait a second, we're not charged for anything? Yeah,
well, let me qualify. You're not charged for AWS Transform. You're going to be charged for the infrastructure that's created.
Of course.
So, like any EC2 instances that are spun up, yes. But there's no charge to use the Transform service. There is, a nominal charge when you're uploading data, right? Like if you upload an RV tools file, that's going to take up a couple kilobytes or whatever in an S3 bucket, so you get charged a couple of pennies there. But overall, it's pennies. You're not charged much. You're not charged for the service itself.
Great.
Okay, so now we've got our VPC set up. And now we're into waves. Is the dashboard? I want to hit the dashboard really quick. So this is what a read-only user could see, and it will give you again an up-to-the-minute status. This is live, or it will be live in a job that's fully running, and it shows what percentage of machines have completed, what percentage of wave has completed. I did NSX, so how many networks were converted. So this is an up-to-the-minute view of what's going on. Here's all my waves. Every single one of them will be shown. Now we only have 2. You saw in the file there were just 2. And you have a few tasks. The first one is to pick your sizing preference. So on a per wave basis, you choose, do you want to recommend EC2 instances based on the max utilization from your uploaded data? Do you want to just do a 1-for-1, size the instances exactly the way they are on-prem? Not common the customers will do this, but it's an option. Average utilization, so this is one that I see a fair amount, average. Or you could pick a specific percentile. What percentile of utilization do you want me to size? Now, it's not going to recommend the same instance type for everything in the wave, but it has to use the same method for everything in the wave. But it's not going to give you all the exact same instance type. You can pick shared or dedicated, and you can exclude certain families. If you don't like T3 for whatever reason, check the box, and it will not be a recommended option.
Yeah, and here I think it's really important behind this, Patrick, is if you're coming from on-premises and using VMware for so many years, we're used to oversubscribing everything right inside of that environment and taking full advantage of the
Yes.
horsepower that we have on premises. When we're coming to AWS, this is where cost and part of the well-architected framework that we have with cost optimization, this is going to help you do that. So we're going to help you design, we're going to help you choose the right instances so that you're spending the right amount of compute and memory inside of these instances so that you're optimizing your costs as you come over. Being able to do this within this agent is very powerful because we're going to be able to help you decide what's going to be the best way to convert these workloads. But we've also give you options if you disagree, per that recommendation to Patrick, what he just showed. You can do different percentages and choose those different options within the instance because oversubscription is now not a thing at AWS. So we want to help you optimize these workloads as you're moving them over.
That is awesome. That's actually a big saver.
It is. Okay. We're into waves. We're coming up to the end here. So we're working on wave 1, and you have 2 ways to deploy a replicate. You have to deploy a replication agent to be able to replicate from VMware into EC2. And you can use something called MGN Connector to automate it. It's an OVA that gets dropped into your on-prem. It has to have access to talk to your vCenter. And you will pick a secret. So you get to, this is another place where if you're going to use the automation, you're going to need to plug in administrative credentials into Secrets Manager so that the connector can push an agent remotely onto a VMware or a Linux virtual machine. So you can use the automation if you want, or you can, if you have software to deploy software onto your existing VMware machines, you can do that. If you're going to install it by hand, you can do that too. The choice is yours, however you want to do it. Once these machines are have the agent installed, they're going to start replicating. Now, that may take an hour, it may take a day, it may take a week, right? It all depends on how large of, how much data you're trying to replicate and how big your pipe is, right? How fast you can push it. Once they're replicated, you're controlling all of this here, again, from Transform. So if you're used to jumping into MGN, if you've used our tooling before, you don't have to go into the console, right? You're controlling everything from here. Once everything's replicated, you can launch a test instance. You want to make sure that the replication worked and the machine's going to come up. So you can tell it, yes, I'm ready to go. There'd be a continue button here. And at that point, it'll bring up test instances. And then you can go into the console, you can try to log into them, you can make sure that the replication worked, and you're ready to go. If it worked, great. Then you can mark them as ready for cutover. So you would say, yes, everything worked. I'm actually ready to cut over. Click, click. And then you launch cutover. And again, from here, you're just going to say, there'll be a button that'll say, yes, cut over. And then it'll do the actual failover. And then the live instances will be running up in AWS. And again, you're probably going to do another test. Make sure production came up. And once everything is up, you're going to hit a finalize button. And at this point, the replication agent gets uninstalled from the source. So you always have the opportunity to resume migration until you cut over, you hit this finalize. And then your wave is complete and you can move on to wave 2. So it's an orderly way to complete waves of migrations. And that is it for the demo.
So I know we're short on time here. I guess one more question, just really fast. So if a customer is using like the ARIA suite or formerly the vRealize suite for monitoring or automation, what do you recommend there for customers currently relying on that on-prem?
So we have a bunch of different ways to do monitoring, right? We can talk to you about cloud native ways to do that, right? That's probably a good discussion for some of the other people on my team that are dedicated to this. And how to do monitoring in a more cloud native way. Sean, you have any other thoughts on that?
You summarized them all perfectly. There's just, once we get over here, right, this is phase 1. Phase 2 is operational tasks and how we go about doing that. And Adam, I know you've worked on this in the past, and Kieran as well. There's a whole nother agentic AI conversation that we can have around observability and monitoring and everything else. And so it's not going to stop here. This is just the beginning for your migration, your modernization, but it's also, frankly, the beginning of what you're going to be able to do with agentic AI inside of AWS as well.
This is awesome. Yeah.
And also, like, quick question here, like, what does that cutover mean? Like, when we're saying that we're cutting over, right, and we're finalizing the crowd, what happens, like, behind the scenes? Is it like we're bringing in the IP addresses, we're bringing in everything that was on-prem into the cloud? Is that what's happening there?
Yeah, when you're finally, the IPs are already assigned to the EC2 instances, so that's already there. Really, the finalize button just says, the migration worked, I'm happy, the production instances look like production, stop replicating, right? Uninstall from on-prem, and my wave has succeeded. That's really what it is.
Awesome.
SVRN says agentic AI really is at it now, and here we are.
Yeah. This is really awesome. I mean, this is such an incredible capability. And Sean, Karen, and Patrick, super appreciate you guys presenting this. Any last thoughts?
Well, there's a really important question in there saying, won't it lead to latency issues when apps span across on-prem and an SDDC and native? That is why it is so important to do wave planning. Yeah. And that's why I strongly recommend using ADS to get that data. Because if you don't have it, you're right, you could have that and you would have latency.
Yep. So we'll quickly go over. I think we just have like less than a minute here. So let's quickly wrap up.
There's just one thing I wanted to share with folks. And Patrick called it out earlier when he was moving around. He had a couple of windows open, and you will, for yourselves, when you're doing the migration, unless you're doing it in a specific way, you would just work through that list and just go from top to bottom. But what I wanted to do is leave you with some information that you can take a look at. So we'll put links to these, in the chat after the session. But the first of which is a click-through demo. So it's exactly what Patrick did now, but you can do it without running any infrastructure at all. And you can do that on your own computer, like the old hands-on labs from VMware, if you remember those. And you can just go through that on a simple little web page, publicly accessible, and go through that whole migration yourself and familiarize yourself with the console. We also have the user guide, so you can read up about the permissions and the different accounts that we mentioned that you may need, as well as the announcement blogs and the login experience is all there for you as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we let the folks with a little bit more information. And yep, that's it from me on my side.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. I think it's time
Thanks
to
all.
be motion out of here.
Yeah, great show tonight. Come back next week for agents and strands API.
Oh, that's exciting too.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.